Ruslan.
And when we look at what Dr. Eric Mason has contributed to planting over 40 churches, being an Acts 29 church plant, which I believe Epiphany was. You can correct me on that if I'm in error. You lean in the Reformed tradition, right? There was a space and time where everyone kind of locked arms during the Reformed and Restless thing, and then all of a sudden it started to split, and your name kind of got dragged through the mud after you released Woke Church, after you took some strong stances maybe for reparations, which I watched the video. I didn't think it was that wild of a position or anything crazy, but your name started kind of getting dragged through the mud in some of these circles. And you said it's not theological. You don't think it's theological. You think it's more pragmatic. So when we're talking a James White, a Jeff Durbin, some of these guys that have just haven't, I don't think, been tactful, tasteful, polite, or wanting to have dialogue, and then you just kind of get dismissed and lumped in with all of these, like the worldly woke crowd. And when you actually sit down and hear your heart, I don't feel like that's what you're on at all. Like that doesn't, you're not on some like Marxism, we need to disrupt the nuclear family and destroy capitalism. It sounds like it's restorative justice. It sounds like it's biblical justice.
They know that. They know that. They know that.
Okay.
They know that. Listen, name anybody that you know of real quick that would say, I'm trying to redefine the family using the word woke. I mean, name one person. Like, I'm saying that because it's to me, it's dishonest. I mean, and shout out, listen, I don't hate people in the LGBTQ community. I don't at all. But I'm not doing gay weddings. I'm not, I'm I'm just kind of like, I don't know. I don't even know what they're arguing. To be honest, I just don't. That's why I believe it's more pragmatic, because it's impossible for you to really engage with that. And so it's no way in the world that you believe that I'm bringing ungodly wokeism into the church and you listen to anything I've said or anything I've ever written. That's like impossible.
This is how it comes off to me. And I made a video addressing Jeff Durbin, woke-ish nonsense. Yeah. And it seems like in hip hop, we would call them like subliminal cheap shots. Like you don't really, with James White, he seemed to have said your name before and addressed your reparations video. But they seem like subliminal cheap shots without actually desiring to sit down and have dialogue and even like read your books and understand what your position is. And what it seems to come down to is these two different working definitions of racism. And you have one side over here saying that systemic racism doesn't exist, it's completely false. And then the other side is like, well, racism is about power and about being able to, so black people can be partial and can be hateful and not nice towards white people, can they be? So it's like these two different definitions, and it seems like Sho Baraka, yourself, Tabati, Blueprint, like a lot of you brothers get lumped into this conversation. Was there ever a direct conversation with any of these brothers that were your contemporaries? I feel like at some point, everybody was on the reform team and was rocking, and then not.
Yeah, I was in that camp, but I don't necessarily consider myself, I don't go by, the whole reform thing. But this is what I'll say. So when you look at, this whole idea of, I've never met James White. I've never met the other guy, Durbin. I've never met him. I know Vody. So but we don't know each other like deep relationship kind of thing. But yeah, I for the life of me, I just don't, this is where I am with it, Ruslan, is I'm in a community that is between 15 and the average income of a six-person, one income household is $15,000 to $25,000 per household.
Wow.
In part of the neighborhood of our community, they've shut down probably 10 schools. They've cut the budget a few years ago for school budget from they cut it $500 million and upped it to over $750 million for not the schooling, but for prisons, and putting in building prisons in the state of Pennsylvania that directly affect these communities. When I'm in the neighborhood I'm in has one main grocery store for 65,000 people. So people are eating out of bodegas. They're in a food desert. When I look at education, when I look at there are over 3,000 cases of police brutality that are connected to where we do ministry. There are reported cases of police brutality. So when I don't really have time, to be honest, to sit down with any of those guys, because at the end of the day, they don't have to do ministry where I do ministry. I have to do ministry where I do ministry. And so I minister to the people in our community. Like right now, we're in the middle of a major project where I can't go into all the details, but we're purchasing a lot of space, and we're starting a K through 12 school in a neighborhood that doesn't have a high school in it. All the kids are packed in classrooms of 35 to 40 students per classroom. And then on Eden, we're doing a boxing league. We're turning the third floor of our building into a combat sports arena where basically kids will learn karate, Muay Thai, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, all of that. But plus, we'll have gospel people there. So we're starting a grocery store. We're starting a technology center. And so all of that we're doing while we're having gospel people there, what we're doing what Titus 3:14 says, meeting pressing needs in order that they may not be found unfruitful. And so that on that end, so on that end of it, when you're in it incarnationally as a missionary called to it, you feel it differently than a person that gets to say what I believe and what we're doing and what's going on from a tower.
Right, and that's my thing, is like knowing some of the work that Epiphany does. It always seems like you guys have been on the front lines in Philly, being the hands and feet of Jesus, and for some reason that gets overlooked and it gets just escalated to, well, this is promoting this cultural Marxism, or this is promoting this, without really sitting down and having the conversation. And I don't know, you're brushing it off. You're very Jay-Z-esque in the way you just responded to that. I get more like triggered by some of this stuff because I've been a part and seen the work that Blueprint does, seen the work that Epiphany does, seen you guys being in these communities and being the hands and feet of Jesus.
That's the challenge. Like, I don't talk about them. So why do I need to dialogue with them? They slandered me. So when you slander someone, you don't dialogue. It's not now time to come dialogue like we're having a equitable conversation. You went out, you did a whole conference on Dr. Eric Mason, woke church or whatever else, right? And it's like when people say we need to sit down and dialogue, I don't talk about them. Like, I'm doing the work of the ministry, right? And so I don't like for them. I think it's important for them to do their homework. I think one of the things that I think is important is I ask people when they accuse me of Marxism, I said, have you read the completed works of Karl Marx? Have you done that? If you call in someone CRT, have you talked to a person that's a proponent of CRT who's a PhD sociologist in the area of sociology and asked them to define CRT and what does it, not just read one little book on CRT and then now you write a dissertation on it, because if we believe I got a doctorate, so they would never, in my doctoral program or my master's program, they would have never let me communicate extensively on being against something if I did not read the original source. You like my dissertation, you had to go to original source. You can't go to the critics of that source. You go to the original source and you get what they say about it, and then you critique what they say. You don't get secondhand information. That's not scholarship. See, for me, I don't get that type of sense. I feel like there's a lot of sound bites, and so these things have been weaponized. And for me, what I love about the glory of the gospel is, man, what happened when they were about to get kicked out of prison? He said, look, man, he said, if it's not of God, it'll fizzle on its own. But if it's of God, guess what, fam? It was nothing you can do to stop it. And so for me, I believe with everything within every fabric of my being that I stand in a long legacy of people who have been committed to comprehensive gospel ministry. In my community and where I'm from, we believe that the gospel speaks to the whole person, not just to the soul, but the whole person. That the gospel speaks to not only your justification, it speaks to your sanctification, but it also speaks to your glorification. But it also speaks to your finances. It speaks to your sexuality. It speaks to your marriage. It speaks to how you deal with your neighbor. It speaks to the systems of our society. If you can't. If you don't have a biblical theology, see, people don't know that Ephesians 6 is really a biblical theology of systems. They are unseen and seen systems. The things that happen in the natural system. I did a sermon on it Sunday talking about the fact that racism and ethnocentrism comes from the spiritual world, not from the natural world. Go listen to it. And so and really build out a robust theology of that. And so I think that's just so important, man.
Mainstream entertainment. Ruslan.
Told me God bless. I told him I wanna bless God. Yes. I told him I wanna bless God. What's that mean? What's that mean? What's that mean, huh? What's that mean? What's that mean? What's that mean, huh? What's that mean? What's that mean? What's that mean, huh? I told him I wanna